Transparently, there are probably close to 100 heat mapping systems out there, or claim to be. Shopify alone probably has free heat mapping softwares. They all say the same thing, but why are we having to talk about the best?
They're not all the same. You'll have to trust me on that, but they're not all the same. But I can see how it looks that way based on someone who doesn't live in these tools on a daily basis.
Well, hello, John. Good to connect again. I am excited about what we're talking about today because it came up last week between us, and it happened to coincide with our schedule. So this is fun when real life mirrors podcast life. You put on here you wanted to discuss heat mapping and the software out there and what's the best one for people that want to really dig into research. Mm-hmm. And we've always at Logical Position, like historically, I'll say 8 years ago, we in the SMB side of the business, we had some clients that were really into data and bogged down our team with lots of questions. And one of their solutions was, well, you like data? You need to go look at heat mapping, because what we found out is once they got a heat map, they became silent, and all they did was watch their screen and watch people on the site, and they just were so fascinated with it.
And hopefully they would learn some stuff in the meantime, right? So, I mean, it sounds like a win-win. That
would be the hope. I don't honestly know if these clients actually came away with anything, but they were super distracted and let us do our work. But it was out of that, we actually learned a lot of the value of heat mapping, because it's like, wow, there's a lot of things you can solve by just understanding where people are getting lost. So it's like dipping your toe into conversion rate optimization or DXO. It just comes with understanding of what are people doing on the site.
Right.
And so I'm excited to actually learn the actual reasons behind heat mapping, not just kind of distracting clients and getting some of that data. But it was fascinating last week to hear some of your answers to our team's questions around heat mapping and understanding some of the traffic patterns and interactions on the site, and how you can learn a lot about your customers through it. So, now, transparently, there are probably close to 100 heat mapping systems out there, or claim to be. Like Shopify alone probably has quote unquote, I'm using air quotes here, free heat mapping softwares that are like, I don't even want to get into it probably, but they all say the same thing. But why are we having to talk about the best? Is it only because there's like over 100 of them that say they do the same thing?
Well, look, that's a great observation, because there are tons out there. So we really do need to talk about this in part because there are so many options, right? They're not all the same. You'll have to trust me on that, but they're not all the same. But I can see how it looks that way based on someone who doesn't live in these tools on a daily basis, right? And it's also partly a topic of conversation today because we get asked this question at the Good so much. All the time. Like you said, it came up last week. I guarantee you it came up at least last week for our team as well. So here's the deal. A researcher is only as good as their tools, right? So if you want to make the best decisions, you need to arm yourself with the best information. Analytics data, user interviews, surveys, they're all helpful in their own ways, right? But there is powerful insight in observing people using your site or your app. And that's what heat maps are all about, but you need to have quality data that you can trust. And when you have that, this gives you a really comprehensive and ideally unbiased view of the visitor's experience on your site.
Got it. So, I mean, conceptually, I understand heat mapping, but I guess, is there a primary value of that other than just seeing where a cursor moves on a site?
Oh, for sure. And I think that's where, if you're just looking to distract somebody, perhaps, right, then there's value in just seeing that, right? And living in that data, I think, is extremely valuable. Learning by observing that stuff is great, but there are dozens of little variables that affect how and when your visitors decide to take action, right? For instance, a visitor might read some content, explore some images, watch a video on the page before finally taking that next step. These footprints, let's call them, right, can provide key insight to help you optimize the experience and drive more conversions and opportunities. Unfortunately, you can't get that type of data out of the box in things like Google Analytics. That isn't to say GA is a bad tool.
What can you get out of GA for?
Well,
I mean,
okay, maybe that is a slight ding on GA. I think GA4 step back. We've had a whole show about that. It is a challenge, right? But
yeah,
regardless, even when GA was amazing, it wasn't going to provide you everything that you needed. So if you have customer tracking set up, it tells a fuller picture, a fuller story. All you can do is tell what's happening. It won't actually show you what's happening through that tracking, right? Therefore, you need some more specialty tools, right? You got to have the right tool for the job. You got to see exactly what visitors are doing on your site. And those tools really come down to heat maps, scroll maps, click maps, and session recordings.
Oh, got it. So it's these tools don't just track a cursor. They actually, I didn't even know this. They do a lot more than these things.
They do a lot more.
What else do these things do that I don't even know about?
Well, so you talk tracking cursors. That's mainly session recordings, okay? Oh. So session recordings are better known as where the user has moved their cursor, okay? So you're going to see a composite of the user's path that the cursors are taking. And that can tell you a ton of information about how complicated your user interface is for the visitor. For example, does the visitor move their mouse all over the page looking for that next step, or do they go directly to it? Right? So that's where it can be really, really helpful. But there's other things that these do. High level, we'll start with heat maps, right? This is where people pay attention. So there's a really famous Nielsen eye tracking study that made pretty big waves when it proved really what we all suspected anyways, but people don't read on the web. We actually scan, right? How often, if you look at an eye tracking heat map, which is another whole tool set in and of itself, you will see a very predictable F-shaped pattern. We start at the far left-hand side, scan to the right, and then drop down and to the left, and we repeat. Now, when we scan to the right, often we're not reading to the end of the line. We get what the first few words said, like, I'm not interested, or get to the first few words, and we're like, I get the idea, moving on. Now, again, this is in Western cultures. There's other directions in other cultures, but they all have the same underlying concern, okay? If you're reading right to left, you still don't read the entire way. You follow reverse F pattern. It's very similar. The result is that some spots on the page get the majority of our attention. That's just naturally what happens here. Other spots get ignored, right? And I really think what we can do is use this to learn whether design elements are effective and how to optimize the page. And I think that's key. It's a data point. Typically, this data is shown in areas that receive a lot of attention as warmer colors. This is where heat comes in, right? Heat map, it's typically red, orange. Areas that receive little attention are cooler, like green and blue. So that's where the term heat map comes in. Most folks know that, but it's important to call that out because almost every tool is going to show you those same type of colors, but the accuracy of that is going to is debatable, let's just say.
So, but I know that when I'm on a site, it's not accessing my camera and actually watching my eyes.
Right.
So they can't zap me and figure that out. So the technology is...
Well, there are different types. Heat maps that we're talking about today, you're correct. It does not use a camera. It uses your mouse movement. Now, the key to understand out of all of this is you can get pretty darn close to eye tracking with mouse cursor tracking. The reason we're able to do that is because whether you know it or not, your eyes are following your cursor around your screen. And so
I got to go try that later today.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't pay attention to it yourself, But yeah, you got to look where your cursor is going to click or where it's pointing, right? So your eyes are going to naturally go there. Now, when you're reading, typically, unless you're my mom, you're not following the cursor along with every word that you read, right? Most of us, give that up when we're 7 or 8 years old. We stop reading with our finger, right? Same thing on a computer. You're not following the cursor while you're reading. Now, as we get older, that tends to happen again, but I digress. The majority of the population on your site, that's not happening to. That's where eye tracking can really come in, and it requires different tooling than what we're talking about today. But the output could look like a heat map. Okay.
Okay.
There's another data point that's really good out of these tools, and that's called scroll mappings. And scroll map is whether people consume your content or not. That is what you want to understand here. How do you understand that? Well, let's just say you design long, beautiful pages, but you want to know, does anybody read them? Do they actually make the experience better for your users? Well, scroll maps can help us understand where people scroll on a page and how long they spend at each section of that page. Okay. So these maps use the same hot, cold color grading as heat maps. It's probably why they're always lumped together. But it's a different view on that data and provides a different data point. If users spend a lot of time in one area, the map's going to show it as red or orange. Okay. If they never scroll to that page at all, it's going to go cold like blue. So scroll maps are really powerful tools to help you optimize your pages because, like heat maps, they tell you what users care about and offer insight into improving those pages. So
got it. And it gives you insight on where to put the more important information too.
Exactly.
Like if there's certain parts of the page you don't want, if you do thinking F shapes, don't put really important stuff on the right side. There's a reason there's not a right rail.
Right?
Yeah, bottom right. They never get there.
Exactly. You're hiding information down where people aren't going to scroll. So maybe you need to change the order of that information so that your most important point is made right up top where you're sure people are going to see it. There are ways to influence getting people to scroll further down the page, but this can help you to understand where they're not consuming the content, let's just say. Right? Now,
got it. Okay.
The last tool that these provide is what's called click maps. And this is whether people are close to converting. That's really what you're looking for here. Okay. The click is one of our most valuable signals because it represents engagement with the content. In some cases, a click indicates that prized conversion, right? Add to cart, check out, whatever that might be. But if people are clicking your call to action, it's a sign that your page is at least decently optimized. If they click elsewhere, well, it might mean that they find something else more valuable, or maybe they just need more information, right? So click maps show where somebody clicks on your page and they reveal whether your users are interested in what they're looking at. Is that making sense so far?
Yeah, I guess so. A click map, you could also because they can click on things that don't do anything. And I think that's an important delineation because you could put analytics events on every link on a page and technically see where they do that. But I think I've seen you audit a site in real time where it was like people tried to click on a mirror in a picture, like they weren't selling the mirror, they were selling a couch.
Right.
And so those clicks were important because it's like they wanted that. So it's like you should sell mirrors instead of couches because you have a good mirror.
I mean, that was, I remember that talk. I think it was a talk I gave at an LPX event at Google's headquarters, right?
Yeah, New York. That was like one of my favorite ones too.
That was a great talk. And it was a great event. I remember that gentleman ended up working with us in the end. But it was interesting because he went home and he emailed me within 12 hours. He's like, John, I've changed the image. Can you run that heat map again? It was pretty funny. I was great. Sure. Let's have people focus on the product you're selling. It makes a lot of sense. But you would have never known that if you just relied on a heat map, click map. If you had only relied on a heat map, not a click map, right? So it's the combination of these tools that's really important. So there's also a bonus one that a lot of these tools provide, and that is on-site surveying. Now, It's not a heat mapping, but some of these tools also provide on-site surveying. So that can be helpful when you pop up out of the corner of the screen and ask, a couple of really pointed questions. You might get some responses to that. The efficacy, if I'm saying that right, of those is debatable, but it is something that we've used at The Good quite a bit as well.
And this isn't a pop-up for like get 10% off for giving you your email pop-up. This is did you like this image, or did you find the information you needed? Like what kind of things would I need to ask in this system?
Yeah. Oh, I think that's exactly it. You're asking very pointed questions, or are you missing any information here? Yes or no? And if somebody says yes, then you can have a question. Okay, what questions do you have? That's a great way to collect that information. It's a very poor way to offer customer support. I will caution you that the vast majority of people who are going to answer these surveys are people who are really looking for or need customer support. So that's why I say they're effective when done correctly. The majority of brands who deploy these don't do it effectively.
Got it. Okay. So, we are talking about the best. So I assume there is a best of all of these that come together. Like, are they in one tool, or are they like I guess, kind of burying the lead here a little bit, huh? Could have let off with this, but I think, we generally recommend Hotjar. And sometimes new clients ask us to use their preferred tools, but I'll be honest, our team almost always resists. And that's how confident we are in Hotjar and providing value there. But right now, hands down, it's the best heat mapping software on the market for professional researchers. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't free options out there that, as you said earlier, might distract. The data is not always amazing, not always accurate. And it might be a representative sample that is very, very low quantity. So take that all for what it is. The investment, if you're going to really actually use this data, to use Hotjar is super minimal. So it's well worth it if you're going to be looking at the data to get the tool that does it right. And I will say we don't take sponsorships here. So Hotjar, if you're listening, John got a high five because we're not being paid to do this. So it actually is a true opinion of what the best product out there is, and that's pretty telling. Now, they do all these things, but so do some of their competitors. Is there something that makes them stand out more, like the specifics of each one?
Right. Yeah, definitely. As I was saying, there's deeper reasons to use Hotjar, right? Because there are competitors out there that are free. Here are some of the features I really like out of Hotjar. First of all, it gives you separate instances for each map. So I talked about all those different types of heat maps, right? Click maps, scroll maps, heat maps, generally following the cursor, et cetera. But having access to all these different types of data is great, but a lot of tools pump them all into that same report. And this really just ends up painting a really muddy picture and makes accurate analysis really difficult to see. Their point of view is, well, when you overlay this data, you can gain more insights, but the reality is it muddies the data, in our opinion. If I want to overlap it, let me overlap it. Don't do it for me, right? So Hotjar will separate all these different types of maps and data, and it helps our team focus on the information we're looking for, so there's really no misunderstandings there.
Got it. So if I have a session of scroll map from, let's say, Bob over there, I can also see, I'd really love to see like the heat map in addition to that scroll map from that person and overlay them if I want to.
Well, not down necessarily to a person level, right? None of these will do personally identifiable information.
PII, can't do that.
Right. So this will do it in aggregate. Okay. So it will do all of your viewers between a certain time frame, right? Now, you also do have to have enough traffic to your site right? So if you only have 10 visitors coming to your site, it's probably going to withhold that data because it doesn't want you to see what only 10 people can do. It's kind of like Facebook and ads, where they won't let you run an ad to a group that is too small because you're clearly targeting 1 or 2 people and you might get 10 in there, but They don't want you to be able to identify individuals.
Right? I get okay. That is an important note then. So even these free tools, like if I've just started and I have 3 people that come to my site a day, can I get free heat maps and some of these things? Or is it like
you can install the snippet? The data most likely won't be there. But let's be honest, if you don't have enough traffic to get heat map data, you got bigger issues on your hands. You should probably give Ryan a call and just get traffic going.
There's a lot. There might be a decent amount of you living. Yeah, heat maps are valuable, but what would be your horrible ballpark back of napkin if you don't have this much traffic? The heat maps are worthless, or these tools.
If you don't have 5,000 visitors a month, sessions.
Okay,
not just visitors, sessions. So if you can get 5,000, then okay, it might make sense to start looking at your heat maps. But in all honesty, you really want 15 to 20,000 before this data is really going to be something you're going to have the resources to even act on. Unless you're independently funded, maybe you're wealthy. I don't know. But most brands I talk to, that's not the case.
Okay, good to know. Even the free ones, like there's very little value, less than 5,000.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. Okay, so Hotjar also does filters for session recordings. So not only can you see session recordings individually, meaning as its own data set, right? Not individual users, just to be clear again. But session recordings can take a while to sort through, especially if you have many of them. You can watch them at speeds faster than real time, which is great, but they still take a while to watch. Right? This means we end up spending a lot of time at the good watching dozens of irrelevant recordings for each page, often without learning anything valuable. It's a major time suck. So highly recommend filtering. What this means is Hotjar, fortunately, it lets us filter our recordings to reduce the number of sessions that we end up having to watch. We can quickly drill down to the sessions that have the most impact on whatever we're trying to learn. So again, if you have enough data, you have enough sessions, now we can slice that data to just get close to what we want to see, as opposed to having to watch everything, right?
Okay, we want this certain page and the people that spent at least 30 seconds on this page with activity, not like they went to the page for 2 minutes and didn't do anything.
Exactly. Okay, also, keyboard shortcuts are available within Hotjar, so this provides quick navigation. Now, maybe you're just a nerd like me, or maybe you love keyboard navigation. I'm the guy who's in Gmail all day using the keyboard. If I cannot touch my mouse, I would love to. The idea here is when you're watching these session recordings, Hotjar really enables you to stop and play and go forward and backwards using keyboard. Now, this is just a huge time saver, letting you bounce around quickly between recordings and find the information that you need. However, some competitors allow for these kinds of actions, but you have to click their buttons, which takes huge attention away from the video, because now instead of watching the video, what happens? You have to look over, find the button, and then click it and go back. It just takes forever, right? When you really get into the research and you're watching a lot of these, yeah, you want keyboard navigation. Let's be honest, if you're going to be a pro, you're not using your mouse for this. It's just unfortunate, right? Have you ever seen a really good CPA use Excel? They never touch the mouse, right? It's a similar type of thing. So as far as we know...
Thankfully, I don't have to watch my CPA. That would for sure put me to sleep.
See, it would be the same thing here, but I'm promising you that eventually that payoff is here if you start watching enough of these, right? But they're the only tool that provides this, which is shocking to me. Right.
Yeah.
So there's a free tip for all the Hotjar competitors out there. Go put keyboard shortcuts in there. And at least maybe you might have some, maybe some crossover at that point.
Maybe.
The last thing I really like about Hotjar, and now you mentioned this with the mirror and the couch, right? And this was a company that sold interior furnishings, and they were selling a couch. There was an image on a product detail page for a sofa, and they had a mirror. It was basically just the sofa and the mirror in the background. And I don't know why they put the mirror there, but for some reason they did. And people were just rage clicking on the mirror because they're like, give me this mirror, right? So they just kept clicking and they were getting frustrated. Hotjar allows you to identify these moments of rage. right? Where users can become so frustrated they click repeatedly thinking, well, this will make the site work. Don't ask me, I don't get it, but I've definitely been in that rage before. So this often really can get confused by slow page speed or broken elements or confusion around what's clickable, what's not. Okay, so often we'll see rage clicking when a page isn't done loading, even though someone's clicking on a button, right? Where a slow page load and the button's not active yet, but it's displaying, people start clicking on it because they know what they want to do. That's a great telltale sign there's an error there. And I would classify page speed as being an error at that point. So
yeah, I for sure rage clicked.
But that doesn't surprise me, Ryan. These are really serious moments of frustration. I think they're a must avoid. So Hotjar's click maps show you where users rage click and helps focus on that frustration point.
Dang. Okay. So insightful. Like I think if you have more than 5,000 sessions a month, you likely should be paying attention to these things. Like it makes sense if you're going to take the next step in the brand and continue to grow. Yeah. If you're less than 5,000, it's focus on traffic. Don't get distracted. There's better things to be doing with your time than really analyzing, a few hundred sessions a month. It just doesn't make any sense at that point to understand. Especially, I think, a lot of these tools came out like Shopify taking off too. Like Shopify from a conversion standpoint and like just like the templates, if you don't mess them up, they're going to function well enough to get you to that 5,000. Yeah. You really don't probably have to worry about this yet. And so those free versions, who cares? I mean, you've said it multiple times and I have to, like, you get what you pay for. If you want something free, guess what? You are the product, or their product's inferior at the free level. And so it's just not going to make any sense.
If you don't trust me, just go sign up for a free trial of Hotjar and give it a shot for a little bit and see what happens, right? There's nothing to lose in doing that. So.
No. And if you've got lots of sessions and you're trying to figure out how to use these keyboard keys to try to navigate stuff, you probably should just be talking to John and let him push the buttons for you. Like I do with my CPA. Like, I don't want to know how my CPA navigates Excel because that's just really boring to me. So get an expert.
I need to get, what makes that interesting is a little offshoot here. There's some great Instagram accounts of people doing Excel hacks that I think will blow your mind. You would really appreciate.
I won't watch my CPA do Excel, but we have real Excel nerds at our company that I constantly have to ping. Like, okay, I need to figure out how to do this VLOOKUP, or I'm trying to put these two things together. And like, Garo, how long have you been in digital marketing and you don't know how to do Excel things? Like, it's surprising how much digital marketing is Excel. Yeah. Like it's crazy.
Crunching data, right?
Yeah, it hasn't updated in 20 years, really? And it's still one of the most valuable business tools in existence.
I would agree with that. That is a big reason that Microsoft is where they are.
Yeah, I love Excel. Like, if they had no other product, I would be a Microsoft customer.
Well, next time one of those digital marketers on your team give you hell for asking them a question, say, well, that's why you're part of the team, right? You got all this great experience that I don't have.
You know how to do Excel and I don't. I mean, I know it's dangerous, but not that some of the levels of complexity with our formulas astounds me.
Yeah.
But John, thanks for the education. We now know which company is best for heat mapping and all of the things that fall under the large, broad stroke statement of heat mapping.
Yeah. There's a lot there, more than what most people think. So thanks for interviewing me on this today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the information. And we'll continue to keep pushing people over to Hotjar to grow their business.
Love it. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.